Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 43, 44, and 45 of Wolverine, written by Victor Lavelle and Benjamin Percy. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Now, following the heartbreaking ending of part 2, this story opens with a plane flying low over the forest canopy, concealed by the night sky. For people always talk about the good old days, where nostalgia is one heck of a drug, which so happened to be the only drug that Wolverine is susceptible to. For back in his Weapon X days, Black Ops missions like this were commonplace. And that also includes the occasional incoming missile. So as the ship erupts in a massive explosion, Wolverine and the rest of his team descend from the sky, like avenging angels onto the soldiers below. Now for some, this could have been seen as a hectic moment in one's life, but for someone like Sabretooth, it was the best of times. Because back when Creed ran ops with Maverick and Logan, they were unbeatable, and now among a pack of fellow Sabretooths, things just seems to fall apart. For Savage and Camo have had enough, and if they were being honest with themselves, the only reason they were okay with him leading was because this was his world. But due to that way of thinking, two of their members, Cap and Pretty Boy, are now dead. So with tensions high, Creed lunges towards Camo, and just like that, a fierce battle is on. Both Sabretooths landed deep blows on each other as they attempted to slash and gash their way to dominance as Laura watched in the background. And just as predicted, our victor Creed came out on top. Now with this battle won and Camo defeated, Creed is once again able to waste his entire army on a single man. So as Savage rushes to Camo's side, she helps him up while telling Creed that they should have never helped him get his unbreakable bones back, and they gotta be the only fools in any dimension who would have fought to get into a Weapon X compound just to help him. So it would be in his best interest to count his blessings, because they're never going to fight for him like that again. Now riding high off his latest victory, Creed made his way into a secret chamber to talk to a very important device of his. A device that was constructed out of the horrors of his actions alongside ORCHIS' science. For with this device, Creed was able to see and experience just how much pain Wolverine was in and relish in that moment. Now, just because Victor was excited about what he was watching, did not mean the device itself felt the same way, for this device had no idea how it came into existence, how it came to be what it is. So without a care in the world, Creed goes on to tell it about how ORCHIS' scientists were experimenting with mutant parts after their deaths so they could construct weapons to do their bidding. So it was only natural for Creed to do the same, for the mutant part he wanted to weaponize was Kid Omega's head. Because with this resource at his disposal, Sabretooth is able to stay one step ahead of his old friend. And following his conversation with Quentin, Sabretooth tells it that he is about to close his eyes, and he wants it to alert him if anyone approaches his chamber. As Sabretooth walks away for a nap, Kid Omega lets out an energy spike that reaches the exile ship all the way out at sea. Now as Oya wakes up in her bed, she is startled by visions of the Creeds eating Kid Omega. So with no time to waste, she made a beeline straight towards Third Eye, as he was leading a class on astral projection with the rest of the psychics. And when she got there, Third Eye immediately knew something was up, due to her mind resembling a mosh pit. So with Quentin's energies still visible around Oya, Third Eye was able to draw several conclusions. First, Third Eye could tell Quentin was a strong psychic, and second, he could recognize that Quentin is unfortunately dead. But somehow a part of him still lingers, and that piece is what reached out to Oya. So with that established, they determined that Necra needed to hear about this. And that is what brings us to the woman herself. And when we get to her, we see her working alongside several mutants hunting for food, until Oya interrupts them with the shocking news. Because apparently, they have been hunting Sabretooth across several universes, and just as they were about to give up on looking for him and change direction, he decided to pop back up again. So with Necra's interest piqued, Third Eye shows her the vision of Quentin's death. But right when we thought the exiles were going to spring into action, they decided to take a pause. Because over the last few months, the exiles took in the Maroon and promised to protect them as they trained them up. But with this threat re-emerging, they are risking putting them back in harm's way. So as the team celebrates their decision, we transition over to Laura watching while Savage helps Camo from her cell. And while Laura was watching them, she started to ask them a series of questions, trying to get an understanding of what is going on. Now at first, she assumed that these two Creeds were clones until eventually, she figured out they were from alternate universes. Now this was something that got on Savage's nerves because she proceeded to gas Laura within the chamber. Now this gas was not designed to kill Laura, but instead weaken her. Because our Savage had another thing in mind, because with no hesitation, Savage ripped Laura's jaw right off her face, because it would take a long time to heal. So as she bled out in front of Savage, Savage couldn't help but to agree with what Laura was saying. Because Savage had to admit that both she and Camo were playing low status. Because all the creeds were hunted across dimensions, they were captured, killed, and turned into headless drones. And all of this was done by one man who held a real grudge against their dear leader, and that man was Graydon Creed, his very own son. But the last time they met, they ejected him into another dimension. So with that out there, Savage suggests they track him down and bring their nephew back for a family reunion. For there is one Sabretooth they would love to see gone. So as that plan begins to form between Savage and Camo, we jump back over to the Maroon, and when we get there, we see a meeting about the current situation among the members of the Exile. They bring up how Sabretooth was the first one to be cast down into the pit. And as soon as they got there, they found themselves into his own psychic hell, for in this hell, he meant to torture them for eternity. And whatever punishment he could dream up, he planned to inflict them upon them. And through all the hellish torment, they became bonded by the shared experience. Until eventually, Cypher gave them the killing seed when they escaped the pit and fled Krakoa. But before they left, he told them to use it to kill Sabretooth whenever they had a chance, but unfortunately, Necra hesitated. Because she didn't know what it would do. But now, she doesn't care anymore because he has an army that threatens everything. So she and her exiles are going to war. So with their mind made up, on the very last page, we see Sabretooth waking up from his dream because he was alerted by Quentin's head while it was dreaming. And in said dream, Sabretooth could see that a secret was being hidden from him, a secret that Sabretooth wanted to know all about. So with a treasure map before him, all Creek could think about is what potential treasure could be awaiting him. So with a war on the horizon, issue 44 part 4 of the Sabretooth War picks up on a somber day, as the mutants of the greenhouse are forced to collect and burn their dead. And among the lost are mutants like Akihiro, Wolverine's son, and Quentin Quire alongside some of the last mutants left on Earth. And thanks to Sabretooth, they are now dead. So as this devastating loss weighs heavy on the heart of X-Force, we skip over to Wolverine getting his body put back together. Because back in part 2 of this comic run, Wolverine was forced to cut off his limbs in order to save whoever he could. And let's just say, he was not in a good mood, because everything within his body was screaming for him to kill Sabretooth. So with anger filling his heart, Wolverine calls for Aurora to reattach his hands, and as for appearance, it doesn't have to be pretty because his healing factor would take care of the rest. But see, what Wolverine didn't realize was Aurora was taking the loss of Fong extremely hard. Because she states she doesn't move on as easily as Logan. Because Aurora is still stuck at the part of mourning for Fong, while Wolverine had already moved on to the part that involves killing. So as she jammed his hands on his body, she asked if it hurt, because it's not fair for Fong to be gone, while Wolverine could just heal. Because from her point of view, Wolverine never loved him, and never could protect him. So in the end, she believes Wolverine never owed him any grief. So with his body put together, Northstar tells Wolverine to give Aurora some time. Now once on his feet, Domino and Colossus enter the room to check on the status of Wolverine, because they have a runner. In fact, on the next page, we see Cap making a run for it while still bleeding out. So with the hunt on, we fast forward ahead a few hours to see Wolverine, Domino, and Colossus on the hunt, searching low and high for their target. And after stumbling upon some polar bear remains, the team was immediately put on alert. So with their guard heightened, Cap camouflages in the snow and springs into action, and dives for Domino, driving her head first into the ground. And without a moment to waste, Cap spins on a dime and retrieves Domino's drop weapon and opened fire on her comrades. But with Colossus literally being a metal man, the bullets did little to no damage on him as Wolverine used him as cover. And just like that, a fastball special was activated. And with a great deal of force, Wolverine drove his claws through Cap. But see, Wolverine didn't stop there, for he continued to hack away at the defenseless Creed as he screamed out how he was going to pay for what he did. Now Wolverine was moments away from butchering his opponent if Colossus didn't pull him off. Because in a situation like this, the only lead they have to track down Sabretooth's army is by interrogating what is left of Cap. So with Cap in custody, Sage tried to get whatever information she could out of him, but as you may have guessed, Cap wasn't having it. So with the interrogations going nowhere, Wolverine puts forth two options: either they use a telepath to extract the knowledge, or they just allow him to continue getting him. So with little options left, Phoebe enters the room with sadness and rage consuming her heart. And with no regards to creed or hesitation, Phoebe dives head first into his mind, ripping it wide open, trying her best to extract whatever information she could muster. So as the pain consumes Cap, we jump over to Wolverine walking away from the interrogation room as Colossus stood vigilant and made sure Wolverine kept a safe distance. But see, what she doesn't know is that the only scars Wolverine carries are the ones in the inside of his mind. And the majority of those scars came from none other than Sabretooth. For Sabretooth has ripped up his brain, ripped up his skin, ripped up his friends and family, and finally even ripped up his very soul as far back as he could remember. But if Wolverine was being fair, he had to admit that he also had done plenty of damage back in return. And even with all the mind wipes and Krakoan plants, Wolverine still suffers from his experiences. And all those plants really manage to do is make it hard for him to keep score on who hurt who the worst in this cycle of violence that's been roaring all through the years. Now, Wolverine goes on to say, this doesn't excuse a single thing he has done, but it just might have damned him, because if Wolverine causes him to seek revenge, then that means Wolverine caused all of this. So with those final thoughts over, Logan lifted the package that Laura left for him and opened it, only to see a mug saying "World's Best Dad," and next to it was a letter saying "Overstatement of the Century." Maybe, but we see that you're trying, and that means something to us. XOX23, Laura aka the best Wolverine. Now this right here hit Wolverine deep down. So jumping back over to Phoebe, she states that there is a psionic power inside Cap that is trying to keep her out. But from what she could glean, Phoebe found out that Creed had recruited them all from different dimensions, and is currently using them as his private army made in his likeness. Phoebe also finds out that Creed was imprisoned alongside the exiles, pretty much condemned to live the rest of his life in the pit, because on the sunlit altar of Krakoa, they pretended they were pure, noble, and good with the moral high ground. But in the shadows, Krakoa did their own killing in the name of nationhood. And because of that, Sabretooth sees them all as nothing more than hypocrites who had it coming and deserve punishment. So as the dark thoughts overwhelm Phoebe's mind, her power starts to lash out in pain. So as blood started to leak from her nose, Domino stepped in and put a bullet through Cap's head, taking him out on the spot. So with the connection cut between the two, Phoebe collapses into Sage's arms as a vision of Quentin manifests before her. And in that manifestation, he is telling her that he is sorry. He is telling her that Sabretooth made him do it. And then he goes on to show her Krakoa and tells her that he is there, and that she needs to send help, that she needs to send Wolverine. Now Sage and Domino thought that she could be hallucinating all of this due to the assault on her brain. But Phoebe feels like it is real, and so does Wolverine, because, on the next page, he is taking the jet and heading straight there. Now Sage tried her best to advise against it, because they have no idea if what Phoebe saw is even real. And even if it was, the island of Krakoa is surrounded by Stark Sentinels, which means at the very minimum, Wolverine would need a team. But that is where Wolverine corrects her by saying, he doesn't need one, because he is not about to put someone else at risk over this. And with that said, Part 4 of the Sabretooth War comes to an end. So with Wolverine setting off to battle on the previous issue, this comic opens up at the island of Krakoa, with Sabretooth coming in for a landing with his very own cloaked ORCHIS craft. Now the reason why he is here is because he is looking for something the mutants left behind. And upon exiting the craft, he takes out his lantern with Kid Omega's head inside of it and uses it to guide him to his destination. Now, as he is walking, he is having a small conversation going back and forth with the head, for even as a tool, Kid Omega is still one of the most powerful psychics around. And upon arriving to a certain hill, Kid Omega's head did exactly as he was told, and proceeded to split the ground open. Now we learn that Sabretooth did not tell the others what he was searching for in his words, they only need to know who to attack when he gives the orders to, because Sabretooth sees himself as the alpha dog. So as he continues to navigate through the caverns, they come upon a dead end, in which Sabretooth continues to force Quentin against his will to blast a hole through the stone wall. And while all that is going on, we transition over to Station 5 with Camo and Savage carrying out their plan to find Graydon. And during their interaction, Camo asks Savage, why is he the one who has to go through the portal to the other dimension? In which Savage responds by saying, because if he goes, there's a lower chance that Graydon will attack him on sight due to his ability to camouflage himself as whoever he wants. And the person he chose for this deception was Mystique. So with the suit on and the portal open, Camo made his way into the Red Void. Now with the mission on, we jump over to the Exiles and the Maroon heading towards Krakoa. And they are fully prepared to put down Sabretooth wherever they come across him with the Death Seed, but what they aren't prepared for was the Stark Sentinels surrounding the island. Now just to add some clarification to this situation, if they would have challenged the robotic menace up front, then they would have been taken out in less than a second. So with options running low, we transition back over to Sabretooth making his way into Forge's old lab, and by the looks of it, the lab was torched on the way out. So with anger consuming Sabretooth, he threatened to fry Quentin's mind for the next few days if he is leading him on a wild goose hunt. In which, as you may have guessed, Quentin denies doing this. So as it continues down the corridor, Quentin asks Sabretooth why exactly does he goes out of his way to hunt down and kill all of Wolverine's loved ones. In which, Sabretooth responds by saying, he does it out of pure hatred, and Quentin would never understand, because long ago both Sabretooth and Wolverine shared a bond that transcended friendship and family. They shared a bond that could only be had with a person you served side by side with, shoulder to shoulder. So with that said, as Sabretooth turns the corner, something blindsides him and sends him flying in the distance. And once he recovered, Sabretooth snapped at the lantern and told it that it said the island is supposed to be abandoned. So with this threat before Sabretooth, Quentin chimes in by saying, it looks like Forge left a safety measure behind. And as for the reason why Sabretooth couldn't smell it, was because Forge could pretty much make anything undetectable to someone like him. But see, Sabretooth wasn't about to fall for that, because Sabretooth knew that Quentin had already noticed it. So as he continued his battle, Sabretooth quickly destroyed the guard before turning his wrath towards his guide. Because Sabretooth was expecting the lantern to lead him to a fully functioning lab, which it did. Because under Creed's feet was a hatch. And this time Quentin tells him the defenses to this area will be substantial. So with his work cut out for him, Creed radios back to his team only to be met with silence, because as of the last issue, they were done helping him achieve his goals. So much so, that out of the portal appeared Camo holding Graydon, and apparently due to his extended stay in the other dimension, Graydon's face has become deformed. So with the first part of their plan achieved, we jump back over to the Sentinel in hot pursuit of the Maroon. So with little ways to fight the Sentinel, the Exiles decided to use its programming against it. Because the Sentinel was stationed at Krakoa for a reason, which means if they are able to gun it towards orbit, then it would have no choice but to turn back. So with the Exiles winning this crazy game of chicken, we jump over to Wolverine attempting his very own game. And the way he was going to do it was by going straight through the gap left open by the Maroon. And because of their unattended efforts, Wolverine managed to get just close enough to the island to be shot out of the sky and land on its surface. And after getting out, Wolverine had no time to waste, for he immediately started to track two familiar scents, one of Quentin's and the other of Creed's, hoping that they would lead him somewhere out of the Sentinel's range. So as the Sentinels blast and shoot in his direction, with determination, he managed to dodge, evade, and eventually roll to his next destination. Until he made his way into the hole that Quentin made on the side of the hill. Now once in the hole, Creed immediately knew Logan was there, which prompted Quentin to say, Wolverine is out for blood, and he is about to go full-on berserker mode once he sees you. With that established, we see Wolverine making his way through the corridors as he brings up how Sabretooth probably already caught his scent already, and how there's nothing he can do about it. So as he turned the corner and prepared for battle, he was immediately hit by Quentin's psychic abilities. Now, this was something I didn't see coming, for Creed had tricked Wolverine into believing they were back in their Weapon X days. So with Wolverine under his control, Creed tells Logan that there is no time to waste, because they have a place they must break into. And once they are in, it is just a simple, smash and grab mission from that point forward. So with that said, issue number 45 comes to an end. But anyway, down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about these issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.